and good afternoon. My name is Chris Grisham, and I'm a reference librarian in the Central Library Business and Economics Department. Today we're hosting a program on identity theft and fraud prevention. Our speaker is Antonia Villasenor, Education and Outreach Specialist with the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. Welcome, Antonia.
Thanks, Chris.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Please proceed with your presentation.
All right. If we can start with the first slide, that would be great. So my name is Antonia, and today we're going to be talking about fraud and identity theft, prevention, awareness, and what to do in case it happens. Next slide, please. So I'm required to read this to you all. The views and opinions expressed today are those of the presenter, that would be me. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the DFPI. The presentation is for educational and for informational purposes only. This is not financial advice. It does not replace independent or professional judgment. The DFPI does not assume responsibility for the completeness of the information presented here. If you have a question, please see our email or email us directly at outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. Okay, next slide, please. So a little housekeeping, please raise your hand. Can you raise your hand? Please keep your questions to the end if possible. I really do want to hear your questions. I'm really happy that you're here with us. I'd like to say thank you first to the library for hosting us today. And then thank you for being here with us today. You're the most important part of today. Of today's presentation. So I'm going to talk about the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, identity theft, tools and resources to protect yourself, and information about how to file a complaint, and hopefully answer your questions. Next slide, please. So who is the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation? We're a state licensing agency. Our power comes from elected officials who write the laws and then give the department the responsibility of enforcing them. I have the pleasure of working for Education and Outreach. So the department, we accomplish a lot of the work with different teams of people that work on for each area of regulation, and I'll share that in a moment. And they look at a variety of financial services, products, and professionals. And as I said, it's my pleasure to provide this presentation. If you want any more presentations or any other information, please email us at our email that I'll share later on. Thank you. Next slide. So, this is a bit mushed, but this is about to give you a slight idea of the department's the licensees. The department licenses a whole variety of services, products, and professionals, banks and credit unions, California mortgage lenders, residential, money transmitters, and a little detail about that. When I say money transmitters, if you can see, this is my phone, we also mean all the apps that you use on your phone and tablet or computer to transfer money, the Zells, Venmos, PayPals, and all kinds of other. Those are also considered money transferring because you're moving money from one place to another. Deferred payday lenders, buy now, pay later, student loan servicers, debt collectors, credit repair people, and student loan servicers. So, and more. So please see the full list at DFPIC. Oh, I don't want to leave out, sorry. Investment advisors and anybody who sells stocks and bonds and any other kind of investment. Next slide, please. So what is identity theft? The first thing I want you to understand, to get from today, is that your information has value. Identity theft is a crime that occurs when someone uses a person's identifying information without your permission. Next. Here's some examples. When somebody uses your personal information without your permission for their profit, And as was pointed out to me right before this presentation, one that's really big in the news in the city these days is our new baseball member from Japan in the Dodgers, Mr. Otani. His now former interpreter pretended to be him to do some banking, to steal some of his money. So that would be banking finances. There's also credit accounts, open utility accounts, tax fraud to get medical services, and even an arrest record. People use other folks' identities because they don't want it on their record. Okay, next. So what do we mean by identity? Documents that have identity information, and I'll share some examples. Um, let me So this is information thieves can use to impersonate you. So next slide, please. Okay, so these are examples of documents that have identity information. A social security card or just the number, Medicare ID card or other health insurance card, your birth certificate, driver's license card or the number, the state ID card, a passport, an ITIN card number, or a consular ID card. Okay, next one. So what are ways that criminals can steal your identity? By phishing, tricking you to give up personal information, often through email, or vishing, which is getting your information by phone. Smishing is for text messaging. Spear phishing is for targeted phishing, which means they aim straight at us in particular. Fake websites, when they have web traffic redirection, is called farming with a PH. Theft of credit or debit card numbers with the magnetic stripe collection of cards. We're hearing about this at gas stations. That's called skimmings, and also social media scams, which unfortunately there are plenty of these days. Okay, next one. So here are some warning signs of identity theft. If you see withdrawals you've never made, if you're missing invoices and statements from your mail, if you get them through the mail still, or if they stop coming to you through your email. If you're still writing checks and merchants are rejecting them, that's a big clue. And if you see on your statements your credit card transactions you never made, which is why it's important to check your bills and your statements regularly. All right, next one, please. Letters about accounts you didn't open, emails about purchases you didn't make, credit card statements for cards you didn't have, debt collectors calling you about debts that aren't yours, passwords or usernames stop working. So emails about purchases you didn't make. I got an interesting one the other day. I got 2 phone calls from somebody with a thick accent telling me they were saying they were from Amazon and they were calling to verify my $1,000 purchase. I said, I don't believe you. And I hung up, and I did it twice. So I went and I signed onto my Amazon account, and I saw that no unusual purchases were made, and it was fine. Next slide, please. So more accounts you didn't open in your credit reports. And I'll talk more about how to get your credit report where you can see what accounts are open in your name. If you get medical bills for services you did not receive, or if you see on your health records, on your chart, some medical conditions you don't have, which is why it's a good idea to ask your doctor, your medical practitioner for a copy of your medical record once in a while. Or multiple tax returns or inaccurate tax records. Or if you actually get a straightforward notification of a data breach. Because here's the thing, you could be doing everything perfectly, and probably are if you're listening to this broadcast today. And still, somebody you're doing business with could get hacked. And that's one way that people can get access to your information. Next slide, please. So we want to help you with information about steps to protect your personal information. Next slide, please. Do not respond to solicited offers. If somebody comes to you in person, on the phone, in the mall, electronically, on your accounts. Don't respond to them. Protect your mail, your physical mail, as much as possible. I know it can be tricky, especially for people who get checks in the mail. You want to get that out of that mailbox as soon as possible. Most people know when their mail carrier arrives. And if you're home, please take it out as soon as possible. Some people have mailboxes where they have a little red flag that says, mail to please pick up. Well, that little red flag now means steal me. So please don't leave anything with sensitive information out in the mailbox for the mail carrier to collect. The best thing to do is to go directly to the post office and drop it off inside the post office, not outside in the blue bins where there's a bunch of sticky stuff and people try and steal it. Sorry, but inside. To avoid getting checks sent to you by mail, which could then potentially be stolen if you get checks on a regular basis from a public benefit or something, you can sign up to receive direct deposit. So that goes directly into your account and you don't have to worry about it. Clean up your financial documents. Don't have them in your trash. It's important to put them to a paper shredder, a cross-cut. And review your accounts regularly and carefully. And you can check with your accounts. After a certain amount of days, they may not be able to hold you free and clear if anybody steals your identity and runs off and does activity without your permission. So make sure you know how many days you have. Check with your bank or your credit or your financial institution, and go from there. Okay. So next one, beware of online identity theft. Online identity theft happens a lot. Be very careful of what you share online and social media if you are on social media. We tell people these days, please don't go if you go on vacation or you go away. Please don't say, "Oh, here I am." People have a video. Here I am at this great, beautiful place. I'm having a wonderful 2-week vacation, and then they come home and they find everything stolen. So you can't. That's just not safe. It's also not safe to anymore post video, and even be careful about photographs. So be careful who has access. Make sure your privacy settings are as secure as possible when you're on social media. Personally, when I started one account on social media, I saw that they wanted my birthday, and I didn't want people to spread my birthday around in case it did get hacked or something. So I put in a fake birthday, and I took a little note so I know it. So my real birthday, I just try to minimize, how it's out there. We also have the issue of voice, video, and photograph cloning, which is horrifying these days. I heard about this just at a presentation last night, where people can get apps that can download our photograph, and then they can also clone a video of us, and they can clone our voices. So we want you to be really, really careful on what you post and where. And they use this clone to pretend being us in other situations. And we saw a video of it we saw a discussion of it on CBS 60 Minutes a while ago, where somebody cloned a consumer's daughter's voice, and then they manipulated it to say, "Mom, help me, come rescue me from these awful men. Please do what they do. Please do what they say. They have kidnapped me and they want money. Please give them the money so they'll let me go." And they actually had the daughter's voice, but it wasn't really her. It was a clone of her voice manipulated. So be very careful about what you put out there in social media. Next slide, please. Okay, I want you to know what a secure network looks like. And that means it's encrypted. And that means that if you're buying something online or doing some other financial transaction online, so you want to look for HTTPS. The S is very important. If you don't see the S, it's not secure. And then you'll see a colon and 2 forward slashes. So forward slashes are when they're the top of the slash is leaning towards the text that comes after it. So you want to see this. If you don't see HTTPS, do not do business there. It's not encrypted, and anybody who knows how to can get access to your sensitive information. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we want you to secure your devices. It's really important to have good locks on it. Don't leave it around. Don't walk away from it in public, because it's amazing what people can do when they have access to your device. Next slide, please. Okay, I want to talk about your free weekly annual credit report. You can get it at no cost at this location, annualcreditreport.com, and or you can go directly. Yes, or you can go directly to. You can go to annualreport.com and you can go in there and they'll help you get in from. They'll help you process your credit report. You can get it from Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, and you can have it again every week. It did used to be every year, every 12 months, but since COVID, it has been changed to every 7 days. So let's go to the next slide. So the reason I suggest to check your free weekly credit report is because you want to see, it'll tell you if there's any other accounts open in your name using your social security number. And I have heard from consumers that they went to go refinance their house. This was a few years ago, and before the interest rates went up. And the bank laughed at them and said, no, look, you've got 5 bankruptcies. There's no way we're going to do it. They didn't know this until they went to the bank. So it's a really good idea before you try to get a loan, before you go to the bank, before you're going to apply for any credit, to for sure check your credit account. At minimum, check it once a year just to see where you are. It'll tell you on your free weekly credit report. It'll tell you, in addition to what accounts you have and your credit history, it'll tell you if your payments are on time, your names and any other nicknames you might be using to do business, some former addresses that you have, and if there's any bankruptcies or other court, mandates against you in terms of your finances. It's not going to have your birth certificate. It's not going to have any pictures of you. It's only about your financial information. And if there's some problems with it, I'll talk in a little bit about. You can write to them. You can write to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion and tell them that XYZ information is inaccurate. And we'll talk more about if there's actual identity theft on it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So keep your important documents safe. Beware of disaster-related scams. Read scam alerts. Consider a credit freeze and a fraud alert. Next slide, please. Okay. So how to freeze your credit. Anybody can freeze their credit report even if their identity hasn't been stolen. What it does is it restricts access to your credit report, which means that you or others will not be able to open a new credit account while the freeze is in effect. It lasts as long as you want to until you remove it, and it's free. So how do you establish it? You contact each of the 3 credit report companies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. I did this recently because as I said, or talked about earlier, I learned that an account that I have was hacked. A business that I was working with, that I am working with, is hacked. So I went and I froze it. Next slide, please. Now, if you want to place an alert, that that means that you will be notified when a new account is opened or when somebody tries to open a new account. So here are the phone numbers for Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And it's really important to know you're able to do both. There's no cost for the freeze and the alert. And I've also heard that people might consider also freezing their children's credit because unfortunately, schools and clinics and other places that have access to their kids' social security numbers, there might be issues. So this is a good tool to use. And people ask me, so will this affect my credit score? No. What about the credit accounts I have now? Will it freeze my credit cards or my accounts that I have now? No. It's only about opening new accounts. Okay, next one. So unfortunately, if you do have an experience with identity theft, I want you to know that you can go to identitytheft.gov. It's a great website from the Federal Trade Commission with a good step-by-step guide on a plan on what to do to get started on recovery. One thing you can also do is you can go to your local police and say, I'm a victim of identity theft. I want to file a report. If you have some documentation of a bill that came to you or that you obtained or a letter or something, take that with you. Now, sometimes I hear at police stations, folks sometimes there's volunteers at the station desk and they don't realize that they can actually check an identity theft report. If they try to refuse, ask for the desk sergeant and the desk sergeant should be has been trained on taking identity theft police reports. That report and I should say, the Federal Trade Commission will trigger your consumer rights. Because if you call a company and say, I'm not going to pay this debt because it's not mine, they're not going to take your word for it necessarily, always. They will ask you to have either a police report or your identity theft report. So that's one reason you want to start this. And this could follow you for years. So that's why it's important, unfortunately, that's why it's important to have this theft report because you may need it in the future. Keep it in your files. Okay, next slide. So what to do right away? The first thing to do is call the companies where you know the theft occurred and get copies and ask them what the steps are to close the account. Or for me, when it happened with one of my credit cards, I didn't close the account. I just canceled that card and got a new one. Place a fraud alert on your credit reports if you haven't already. And again, report the identity theft to the Federal Trade Commission. And again, you may choose to file another report with your local police. You don't need to do both. You can do either or. Okay, next one. Both of them will trigger your rights. Close your accounts or, you close your account and open a new one. Sometimes what that means is they'll just change the account number. So thieves don't have access to the one that was stolen from. You can remove bogus charges from your accounts. You can correct your credit report by, again, writing to the credit bureau, send them copies, and let them know that this happened. And this was written. You've already, if you don't already have a freeze, this is a good time to have it. And review your credit reports often. And you can now that it's available once every 7 days. All right, next slide, please. There are also in the identity theft guidance regarding other kinds of identity theft like military ID, medical information. So it's a really good website to use. Generally, you have limited liability for fraudulent debts and accounts caused. That means, here's an example. Somebody bought 150 a couple of years ago. Somebody bought $150 of music equipment on my credit card. It was, somehow they got a hold of my number. Somebody else one year bought 17 pizzas at the same time in different neighborhoods. Go figure. I was not liable for any of those because I reported it quickly. I did not have to pay those bills. They were removed from my credit card billing statement. In case you're a victim of a data breach, it's a good idea to look at usa.gov to know your rights. We're not going to go into that deep detail today here. Next slide, please. Okay. This is my catch-all. I want to give you a good tool about to avoid any kind of fraud and even pushy salespeople. And Chris, maybe you can help me if you chime in here. What happens when you go grocery shopping when you're hungry?
Possible for me to buy more groceries than I actually need.
Okay.
There's some impulse shopping that goes on there.
Yes, there's a very good reason for that, and it's neurological. When we're hungry, we get even just a little bit of hunger, and that's a little bit of stress, and that's enough to throw our brains off of the logical behavior and into the right side of the screen where I call the amygdala, stress behavior. And I share this slide because a lot of people tell me over the years, I'm never going to be a victim of a scam because I'm too smart, I'm too rich, I'm too professional, I'm too poor, I'm too cheap, I don't talk to anybody. And yet, when we're even just a little bit stressed, the executive function of our brain, which we see on the left side of the screen, little green arrows, then we see the executive function of our brain, which says, Antonia, you don't need that impulse buy. Antonia, don't believe this guy when he calls you and he says, you owe money to somebody and you need to pay with a gift card, or they're going to come and arrest you. So these are all, or, oh boy, you're going to get this super deal. You want this car half price, don't you? It's a used car. Or, honey, I love you, from an online romance. I need you to send me money because I want to come see you. So all of these are emotional moments, and scammers use our emotions to push us out of logical thinking and into an excited, stressful, literally it changes the chemistry of our brain. A lot of people are ashamed. There's no need to be ashamed when they're a victim of a scam. It's a scam. They've been pushed. So here's the best tool that the actual researchers, neurologists have come up, and economic behaviors have come up. Pause. Wait. If you can, wait 24 hours. And the reason for it is that our brain chemistry literally changes when we're stressed. And when we pause, the more we pause, the more time we let our brain chemistry return to a logical, less stressed and logic. So the best thing you can do is pause. Talk to somebody else about this. Is it really such a great deal? I once had a senior couple at an event where the husband was still annoyed with his wife because they went to an event the day before and somebody offered him a free iPad. And she said, yeah, but they wanted his identity information in exchange. So she was his pause. He's ready to go for it. Why? Because he was excited. He wasn't thinking that this was an identity theft opportunity. So that's a good example. Next slide, please. Okay. I want you to have access to more information beyond this. Always, your local librarian is a good idea. Also, Federal Trade Commission, which I have talked about a few minutes ago. It's at you can go to ftc.gov and learn lots of good information about preventing and what to do identity theft. You can also order free resources and report it and get lots of other tips. Next slide, please. For more information, if you're interested in financial skills, you can go to Money Smart, to the FDIC's Money Smart. You can play Money Smart online. They have games to talk about financial topics, and it's self-taught. And they found that in a game orientation, people are usually more engaged than just sitting and reading. So there's that. Next one. If one of our licensees is breaking the law, please submit a complaint. Hearing from you is one key way for the department to learn about wrongdoing by financial service providers. If we do not license that company or people you're complaining about, the department will forward your complaint to the appropriate agency. We don't just chuck it into the circular bin. Next slide, please. So you can call us at 1-866-275-2677 during regular business hours. If you want to know information about, is this something I should submit a complaint for, or is this a business that we regulate? If you need to verify a financial institution, business, or individual is licensed in California. And I want to talk about how huge this is. A lot of folks are victims of some kind of financial scam when it comes to their life savings and investments. And over 90% of these cases happen with folks, with the salespeople not being licensed. If they say, oh, don't you trust me? We're friends, so-and-so, run away. They should be very willing and help and upfront with you about their license. And if you're getting an offer at Saturday night at 5:00, you can wait till Monday. There isn't any legitimate financial transaction that can't wait until the next business day. And if they're rushing you, leave. It's not in your interest. If you're a victim of financial fraud or need to file a complaint, we want to hear from you. So you can call us or email us. And I'll have that information soon. Next slide, please. Okay. You can learn about us at our website at dfpi.ca.gov and our phone number. You can email us at askdfpi@dfpi.ca.gov, or you can actually reach my team at outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. Again, that's outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. There's only 5 of us that read that email in the department, and we will get that at outreach. I think that's my last slide, isn't it? Chris, you're muted.
I think that is your last slide, but I do have a few questions if you don't mind.
Okay.
You referred to tax fraud. Can you give me an example of how that comes to pass?
It comes to pass when somebody uses our Social Security number to file taxes because they want some money ahead of time, our tax filing, our tax returns. So we say 2 things. File early before a scammer has a chance to get in there. And you can also call the IRS and ask for a PIN number. And that means that when you file your taxes, you'll also include that PIN number. And that way the IRS knows the difference between the actual filer and an imposter.
So people are making off with your income tax refund if you had one coming.
Right. Or they're faking it and filing fraudulent information to increase the refund.
Is there any particular concern for people who are still using paper checks?
Yes. Be careful mailing them. Make sure you mail them directly to the at the post office. I use them a few times. I don't use them much anymore, but I do use them. It's really important to make sure you're using a permanent ink gel, because one of the things that happens with checks is people will have, with chemicals, they're able to wash, the recipient and the amount, and they'll write the check out to themselves. So be careful about who you're writing checks to. If you can pay electronically. I know I've been doing it for years, and I've never had any problems to date. Knock on wood.
I know apparently that it's not very common anymore, because I know I was paying a medical bill and they seem to be surprised to actually see a paper check. I guess they're just used to getting credit card payments these days.
Oh, speaking of checks and seeing them, we used to use checks a lot at the grocery store, and I did hear a tip yesterday at a presentation I was at, and it's related to checks, to our checking and savings accounts. And one person, a police officer, at the presentation yesterday said, "Don't use your debit card at the store if you can help it. Use your credit card." And one of the reasons for this is A, the money comes directly out of your bank account, and B, you don't want your PIN number out there. When we go to stores, and back when I used to use my debit card to pay for things, the cashier they would often say credit or debit. And my suggestion is, if you are using your debit card, run it through, let them know, say, please run it through the debit system. Some stores will charge you for this, or they'll charge you a minimum. It's up to you to make those decisions. But you're safer if you're going to use your debit card to avoid using your PIN, use it through the credit system. The money still comes directly out of your checking or savings account, whatever you've allocated.
But in that case, you get the benefits of the protections for credit transactions and not just a debit transaction. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I recently saw a reference to something called a synthetic identity theft. Is that the same as cloning?
I don't know. That's new. I got to look that up. Thank you. I learn
Yeah.
every day.
I didn't get a chance to get to the definition. You've mentioned money transmitters before. Does that include companies like Western Union?
Yes. So yeah, money transmitters includes, back in the day, we would go to Western Union and wire money to someone, and those offices are still around, and they're online too. So as I said, money transmitters are those storefronts, those offices, and it's also all the apps that we have on our phones and our devices.
Can you talk about passwords? I heard recently there's a company called Roku. They make streaming boxes, so you can hook your television up to it and you can get HBO, Hulu, Peacock, all those streaming services. But something like 500,000 of their customer accounts were breached. And they said that was a function not so much of their security being broken, but something called password stuffing or accounts, something like that, where they were getting passwords from other accounts and using them to crack them at another business.
Wow. It's just getting more and more sophisticated. I heard about this. I saw the headline, but I hadn't read about it. It's really important. I'm going to run home when I get home tonight and change my password on my Roku, because I actually do have Roku at home. And one of the general advices I see is, okay, keep your passwords private. A friend of mine, when she met her now husband, he had a file folder called passwords. Now that they're married, she has a file folder called Grandma's Recipes, right? Who's going to want to steal that? Don't keep them on sticky pads where other people can see them, right on top of your computer. Make them a little bit complicated. Antonio 123 or 111 is a terrible password. One good guide I've heard these days is make up a short sentence, and then use the first letter. I like purple rainbows. I'm just so it's ILPRB. right? And then some numbers and whatever symbol is allowed. And then keep that somewhere safe. Some people use online services for that. Some people keep it in somewhere. I frankly keep it in a recipe book. So, um,
And that leads to another question. So, if I understand correctly, security specialists recommend that you have unique passwords for every account, so you don't use them the same password more than one place.
that's correct.
Let's see, what was I going to ask you? Oh, and whether or not it makes sense to use password managers, because apparently even some of those have been breached.
Right. I haven't done a lot of research on that. I'm thinking anything can be breached these days. So it's up to you to do we need to do our research and figure out what works best for us.
Let's see. Oh, you mentioned people and their use of social media. I remember hearing or seeing in local news reports, people were posting information about when they were traveling out of town. And some thieves were using that information as a basis to go and burglarize their homes.
Yes. Yes, we've heard that a lot. It's basically an invitation. Don't Yeah. So if people really want to post images of their trip or places they've been, we suggest posting it after you return. And again, be careful of I haven't talked about AI much. Be careful of posting images of yourselves or your kids, because just last night, someone at a presentation somebody was saying that there's different artificial intelligence apps that people can easily download and manipulate our faces. They might even manipulate our faces, our voices. So we need to be careful of what we post. Personally, I tend to post more scenery than, and I share, if there's a group of people I want to share with. Personally, I just text it to the people directly I want to share with. I don't usually share pictures of my face online socially. I don't think, except here. So here we are. It's hard to avoid.
Let's see here. I've read that the statistics accounting for identity theft have shown it's been increasing quite a bit over the last several years. Is there any specific explanation for why that's happening? Is it just a function of people who are online conducting more business?
I think it's a function of people being online and thieves being online. And with AI, it's expected to grow again exponentially. It's more convenient for thieves online, quite frankly.
What do you mean when you say more convenient?
Okay. Back in the day, when we were stealing an identity and stealing somebody's physical mail, that's one person's envelope, and we have to take time to go do that. Now they just buy it off the dark web en masse, including my own.
It kind of makes you wonder if it's worth your while to go online at all. Which goes back to a point you made before about, if you're being pressed to engage in some kind of transaction, that might be an indicator that the person is trying to obtain information from you or take advantage. And I was wondering if, at the other end of the spectrum, when you find out you've had identity theft or some fraud perpetrated on you, if it doesn't cause some people to possibly freeze, for them to go into paralysis out of fear about what the consequence may be.
I have found the best way to deal with that kind of anxiety is to take steps, because then our brain is busy away from fear. Our brain can only do so much at a time. If you're busy doing something, it's going to be less busy being afraid and anxious. So, as I said earlier, and people can watch this over again since it'll be recorded, take the steps, freeze your credit, put an alert. The first best thing to do is to look at your credit report. That's really the most consequential thing. And then freeze your credit, and then put an alert. These are all things that you can do that won't cost you anything. There are plenty of people that are willing to charge you money for this, but you can do it at no cost. It's been authorized and actually ordered, mandated to give you these services at no cost by the credit bureaus and by the credit bureaus. So my answer to you is take action steps that'll work to protect you. That'll help fight the anxiety and actually reduce it.
See, that makes sense instead of just ruminating on it if you're actually in motion trying to change the situation.
Yeah, I call it changing the channel, and I do it often.
That's a good description.
Away from anxiety channel to something more positive.
See, if there's anyone out there sort of watching this program that has a question, we invite you to submit your questions to us. That's what we're here for, to try and provide you with helpful information. See if I have anything else.
Okay, while you're looking, I'll talk about when I mentioned, you can go and get your free credit report online. You want to do this at a secure, where you have secure internet. You don't want to do this at the library. You don't want to do this at a coffee shop or anybody who says, hey, we'll give you some free internet if you come hang out here, or whatever it is. That's not where you want to do financial transactions. That's not where you want to do anything that includes any sensitive information. And the reason for that is there might be someone there who is interested in collecting people's information. And you have less control over who sees what activity you're engaging in. So make sure that you're doing these activity in a safe place. And that means it's a secure website.
That brings to mind, people frequently come to the library to use our Wi-Fi network, but they ask us, is there a password? And we have to tell them, no, this is an open, unsecured network. So anybody who's making the effort to find out about your communications online may have the ability to do that. So you need to keep that in mind. Same thing as going to Starbucks and using their Wi-Fi there, or other places where if it's free, it's probably not secure.
That's correct. Yeah, and that's worth putting an underline under, since we know library patrons are watching this and we want you to be safe.
Yes. Well, Antonia, we haven't got any questions, and I've gone through most of my list. So if you have some closing comments to make, we'll bring this program to an end.
Well, thank you all. Please let us know if you have any questions. Please check our website and call us with your questions. And if you don't remember this, if you don't have this information handy, go to your local librarian. They're trained in gathering information. And here's what I see. I've been doing this over 10 years now. And where I see consumers getting into trouble is when they rely on information sources that are not legitimate. So make sure you go to somewhere legitimate to get your information. For example, let's say you get a bogus email saying there's a problem with your credit, with your bank account. You need to click here, otherwise we're going to freeze your account. First of all, what emotion is that? Is that fear? I also heard recently, sometimes when people do in that situation is they say, okay, I'm going to call the bank, and they Google XYZ bank. And what thieves have done now is they bought ad space in Google. So their phone number comes up and they'll answer, bank of blah, blah. So you can't even trust that anymore. And the best thing to do is go to your statement, if it's online or printed. You might want to keep one printed if you are online, just so you have this information handy. And on your statement, on your any financial institution, any business should have their legitimate phone number. So make sure you keep that handy. Because then you can call. Don't respond to any email or text saying there's a problem with your account or you're getting a package. Anyway, we're talking about accounts for a moment. Don't respond to, never press click. We want you to call that number on that statement that you know is legitimate. Because scammers want your attention. They want you to say yes. They want you to comply. So we want you to get to legitimate information so that you can protect yourself.
It's like the old axiom, consider the source. So if you've got documentation directly from your bank and it has contact information, you can rely on that instead of what you may or may not find looking around online.
Right.
So, all right. On that, I want to thank our presenter, Antonio Villasenor, California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, and thank our audience for those of you who tuned in. And I hope you found this information. And I wish you all a good day.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.